Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to check out the Burnham Project on Substack. You can get Burnham podcasts, you can read my blogs and all sorts of cool stuff. It can even be sent right into your inbox. You can also watch us on Rumble and YouTube. We like Rumble better, but you can also watch us on YouTube. You can also find Burnham Podcast anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, click the little bells, the Rumble button, whatever the service has to offer. Click it, do that, follow us, tell people about us. Thank you very much. So in church, you hear a lot about missions, about missionaries, and I'm going on a mission to this place or to that place. In this episode, we're going to meet some real-life missionaries. We got Miss Candi Hyde, and we've got Steve and Carol Wisenburg. They're going to tell us about all the missions that they're involved in, both locally and internationally. Welcome to Burnham Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Burnham. So I've got multiple guests tonight. I had planned on having Miss Candi Hyde on. She brought some friends with her. She's got Carol and Steve. Tell me your last name. Wisenburg. That was not what I was going to guess at all because I'm awful with names, but I'm super glad to have you guys here tonight too. And we're going to talk about missions. We're going to talk about some specific missions. We're going to talk about where you're going and what you're doing and where you've been and what you've done. So we're going to put some names and faces with your ministry. So what is this event, this mission trip that we're talking about tonight?
Well, our church, HBC Rome, we go each December to Mexico, and it's Ixmiel, Mexico is where we are kind of stationed. And it's through Mission House International. I think that's right there.
Yep.
And so they have, their goal is to reach communities, the villages around there that have not, Christ hasn't been presented to them. Right. So reaching out. And so kind of like pairing a church from here to a certain village so you can build relationships and you can go and work and families could go. So it is a safe area where my whole family has gone.
Right.
So that was really nice because, we like to do things together.
Yeah.
And I enjoy seeing the girls be able to, serve others and talk to others about Christ. So that's where we've been doing it. Church has been doing it for I think over 10 years.
It's been at it a while now.
Yeah. And so it started out just buying a piece of land that nothing was on it, just rocks and jungle, and clearing it and putting a spot where groups could come. So there is bunk houses.
Right.
And just a covered area where we eat and hang out at. But it's still wide open, but it is nice. It's comfortable for, the jungle.
Right. As comfortable as the jungle can be. Yeah.
And then that started, and then they've started really reaching out more into the village. So our church is paired with San Francisco.
Right.
It's 5 minutes down the road. But I know that sounds weird here, 5 minutes down the road, but there it's from one village and you have a big gap of just trees, and then you go to another village, and it's just like a one room, homes. So all the windows are open, the doors are open, and they just have hammocks hanging. That's their beds, and they have the trees like a orchard top, depending on what they're growing.
Right. Because
they grow their own food. So you blink and you're gonna miss the village.
Right.
It's not big at all.
Yeah.
So we're paired with San Francisco. We bought a piece of the church together. Bought a piece of land and built the church building. It's like a little thatched. I don't know what's the official word. Palapa.
Flaffa.
Palapa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there was groups at the beginning that learned how to build those and put them together. And so we've gone in since then and painted. I think we stained it this last time.
Yep.
And then we've added a sports court. It's just a concrete pad where you can they could play soccer on it. And then we did put some basketball goals, and they painted those this past December.
Mm-hmm.
So I think but we've also done other stuff. But at the beginning, it was a lot of physical stuff.
Right.
Just because you're meeting physical needs just to kind of get established.
Right.
And then I would say past couple years, been a lot more of ministries like that we've kind of put in place, or relationships. You start seeing the growth of it more. So that's been cool to, like, you build a relationship with a family down there, and so you go back and they're like, oh, you've changed so much, or the girls have grown up, and and really maybe someone that you didn't get to have a huge conversation with, but they noticed, and so that's always really nice.
Yeah, it is. And you talked about doing things, right, and how many doors that opens up. And if you do missions, you know that it's great to go out and start conversations about Jesus. That's what we're supposed to do. But if you are able to meet a need, right, then the conversations start themselves.
Well, and meeting the need also helps build that relationship, because what started off, and I've only been 2 years, this year will be my third. And one of the things that we've learned is that the men didn't want to be part of when we were there to do the work, the village men would disappear. They would go away. And we would, gather a little extra money. We would hire a couple of their people, a couple of the men to stay with us to help us work and do the labor part. And these guys are really hard workers. I mean, they'd go into the village or into the jungle, and they'd chop out all these branches and everything. And we'd carry them out, and I'd carry like 10 of them out at a time. And they're carrying 15 and 20. And I'm tired after about 30 minutes, and they're out there doing it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, so the first couple of years, the men didn't want to be there unless they were being paid. Well, the last 2 years, the men have started to come in, and they've seen us work there. They've seen us come back over and over. And the ladies are doing great with the girls, or with the children and the ladies in the ministry there. But we're starting to see the men open up now. Yeah. And not last year, but the year before, was the first time that we actually had a men's Bible study with a couple of the men. We had about 5 of the men from the village there. And while we were doing this, the ladies were outside, and they were praying, and they were doing their little Bible study. And my wife over here, she's sitting there praying with the kind of the village, what's the term? Yeah, the matron of the village. And she's praying with her. And I turn around and look, and I snap a picture, and she's got her hand on her, and she's got her hand up in the air, and she's praying with her. And at the same time, inside the little men's study, her son was in there accepting Jesus, and the grandson at the same time.
Wow.
And
I just knew she was weeping.
Yeah.
And didn't know what was going on.
It's just time to start praying when somebody's crying,
we're
right?
both just crying and praying, and then later I find out her son, and she had told me the day before, when we had a chance to tell our stories to the ladies, which was the first time they had done anything like that. And we've been taking the Timothy Initiative. So we determined, because of Greg Pauley being part of the Timothy Initiative, guys, you're going to tell your stories this year. I want to hear you tell your stories, because that's how you get people to open up and get them to tell their stories to you. Yeah. So we did, and I sat down with the lady and said, I'd like for you to tell me your story. And so she started telling her story, and I didn't understand at the time. She's speaking the Mayan language, and we have an interpreter. We're missing our interpreter who's about to give birth.
Oh, wow.
And so we have 2 interpreters. Yeah, it was very inconvenient of her. But we had 2 interpreters that were working together to try to tell me her story.
Oh, so they were piecing language together.
Yes, yes. And neither one of them were very adept with the Mayan language.
Right.
And they were so precious. But she cried the whole time she was telling the story, and I didn't expect that. I just wanted to hear about her life. Right. And the story that she told me was she won, apparently, her daughter-in-law to Christ. And so her daughter-in-law started going to church with her, and her son became angry and started being physical with her daughter-in-law. Oh. And that's why she was crying as she was telling it, because she was upset and horrified that her son was trying to physically stop her daughter-in-law from coming to church. And so as she told the story, I just embraced her, and we just kind of bonded over it. Yeah. And she said her daughter-in-law looked at her son and said, "You can knock me down, but I'm going to get up and serve the Lord."
Oh, bless her heart.
Yep.
Yeah. So the next day, we had gone out as groups and visited some of the homes, and we came back, and someone said, "Hey, shh, shh, the men are in there having a Bible study." And the ladies were out weaving their hammocks and doing displays and such. And I looked over at one of the ladies and said, "We need to pray right now."
Yeah.
And it was just, I felt the Spirit moving me to pray.
Yeah.
And so I felt I was supposed to circle that entire property and pray. So I start circling and praying, and everyone else is separate, doing their own thing. And I just felt very led, I need to circle this place 3 times. And I got to one spot, and I could not go through because it was a lot of debris and rocks on the ground, and I couldn't move. And this man just out of nowhere pushed a cart out of the way so that I could step through, and he didn't realize I felt I needed to complete that circle to continue to pray. And so I come to a stop after this because I've finished what I felt like the Lord had assigned me to do. And I look down, and there's Eladia crying. And she's staring, transfixed, inside where the men are. I don't know what that means. I just know that's my next assignment. I'm going to pray with her. And so I squat down and prayed with her. And then we find out later her son and her grandson had both accepted Christ at the same time.
And the son is the one who had been abusive.
Well, right.
Yes. It was all putting it together. Connection. Yeah. So
the really cool thing was what I prayed was, "Lord, allow this woman to see the salvation of her village, just like you allowed Simeon to see the salvation of Jesus when he saw him being born in the temple." And then he was done. He was ready because his life was complete at that point. I don't know what brought that to me. I do.
Right.
And then we got back to the mission house, and we were meeting and going to do our huddle, and I just opened my Bible and realized that I'm in Luke 2, and that's where Simeon is introduced.
Yeah.
And it was just God
real full
reaffirming.
Circle God
Yes.
moment, right?
Yes, very much.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. And then this last year, when we went back, he did his baptism with his grandson or with his son. So they just completed the picture a year later, and they're doing it with us as the part of the village and being part of that.
Because we're part of their church.
Right.
They're part of their
And their faith walk.
extended family.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a family relationship. It's not one of these places that you just go to and then you never go back there again, and you feel good doing a service project of some sort while you're there, and then you come out of it and it's like there's nothing, you don't get anything out of it. By building that relationship with the village, it helps.
It is a waste of time when we go on these trips to places like this, and we go one time and we take pictures with these little kids and look at this mission trip that I went on, and we never go back again. And there's no discipleship, and there are no needs being met. But look at this awesome thing that I did that one time.
Photo opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Goes on your desk, and people know you went on a mission trip.
Right. You're just checking a box. But to go back and build these relationships and be part of their church and part of their village, and that's such an important thing to do. And I think it's underrated when we think about even short-term missions in the American church. We kind of I went to Mexico this summer and we did some fun stuff, and tell me some names and some places. Well, I don't know, but we ate McDonald's in the airport. Okay. Cool.
Well, Ishmael is where the main, I guess it's for lack of a better term.
Hub.
Yeah, the hub. That's
Maybe
a good
that's the
point.
way I think of it.
That's where we have the dormitories we stay at. They have water that is filtered for us, so we don't have to worry about where we're getting water. We have showers. We have all that other stuff there, and that's where we stay. And we have a ladies' dorm and a men's dorm, and then they actually have a couple other buildings there.
Right.
And the village in Ishmael will come in and they'll do a church service there as well. So we'll participate in that church service, and it has its own sports court, which is a covered area where they can play basketball or soccer or whatever. So, and it even has a swimming pool. So, hey, it's
That's
if,
cool.
if you're bringing your kids on a missions trip or something, it's a great place to take kids, and they can get something out of it that's outside the village. Then when we go to San Francisco, we all load up on a bus. It's actually a real school bus. It came out of Ohio.
Yeah.
And,
All the way to Mexico.
yeah, all the way to Mexico. And when it went, it was fully loaded with food and all this other
wow.
stuff they were taking there. But then you go down to San Francisco. And I know my first time down there, I was thinking, dirt road and all this other stuff. Well, there's a paved road, 2-lane road that goes into this village. And so you go into San Francisco and it's like, okay, this isn't exactly what I envisioned, but you get off that main road and now you're into the dirt roads and dirt floors on all the huts and the kids running around barefoot and all the other parts of it. And so you're going into that, but because you're tied to that main road, you've got people selling soda pop on the side of the road, and you've got people that are harvesting the fruit and stuff and selling that along the side of the road and doing that. But this last year that we went to another village, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was
San Marcos.
San Marcos. I know. I was trying to say, San Marcos, and that was the first time there. The church that's kind of attached to them or assigned to them because of COVID, there was, I think, they had to pull out. And so they were kind of letting other churches come in when they had a team just to kind of help keep that going. And it was a really big village. I was really shocked by the number of people. But it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's a lot further away. And you have the windows down on the bus. And so you sometimes have to travel in the middle of the road because the branches are coming in and you can't sit real next to the window because you get smacked in the head by the branches.
The teenagers enjoyed that part.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Of course, I was freaking out to being the mother. Okay, wait, here goes a branch. Duck. Yeah. So, but that was really, I liked going to a different, to see the differences.
Yeah.
And what we saw there was the men were withdrawn.
Yeah.
Just
still
as they
the same.
began the first years
So
initially
you
when
started
we
that
approached.
process.
Yeah.
They sat on the wall there was like a little.
All their arms.
All folded. You just see them
in
the back. They would send the young people. There was a soccer team that they had started really working with and building, and that's with the young men. So they're trying to build rapport and get the young men, and so that will just kind of grow. Yeah. And that's been really successful with Mission House, is that soccer team, but they belong to that village. So many people there. So
what is it about the men that they're so withdrawn to begin with? Is it a pay thing? You said some of them started when you started offering them a little money.
Yeah, I think it's I think they're just standoffish. They're I don't know what to call it. Just
we're interlopers. We come into their world, and they need to judge us a little bit to decide whether they can trust us. And I have to say, the first year that my husband was there, it was kind of sad because we had very few men, and the men that we had came together and said, we want to get a couple of people in the village. So the minister there, Eli, chose specifically men he had been trying to reach. Okay. And so the ones that he hired were there working alongside our men. My husband has a bad back. We had a 14-year-old boy, and we had someone who is retired and someone with some health struggles.
Right.
Yeah.
And these men watched our men work so hard. They worked like dogs. They were in the heat. They were pouring sweat, but they never stopped. Yeah. And when they stopped working, they were just like sweeping, cleaning, picking up brush, whatever they could do. They earned the respect of those men.
Yeah.
And once they had their respect, there was the foundation. They were prepared to accept their friendship.
Right.
And that's when they had the conversation between them. We need to have a Bible study. And so the Bible study happened because first these guys watched our guys work so hard. And they literally came the morning of the Bible study. I didn't know this until later. They came early to finish the work because they were so worried about our guys working in the sun. So that tells you they had won their heart.
Yeah.
And they worked hard to do that.
Well, I mean, we're the ones that go and do, right? We're the Americans, and we have all the resources, and we go to these places. So we have to put ourselves in their shoes and imagine what it would be like for people to come here and go, hey, let me help you improve your way of life. And I might not be aware there's anything, substandard about my way of life. But so it takes a day or two, and then we'll earn some trust. But you guys are paying the price, and you're earning that respect. And they expect you to come back. Yeah. And they'll feel that same love again as you guys build these relationships. That's awesome. That's so good. So this will be your third year.
This will be my third year. Yep.
Yeah, and it's actually going to be our third year. We did skip a year. It was the year after COVID. The church did go back, and there's not too many churches that went back. But we did. Our family did not go that year. But so this will be our third year also. Okay. So I know the girls are, they want to go on their own one time, so they can that freedom. I'm like, I don't know.
That's a different country.
I know. I'm just a little scared about that. But yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going back. I know this past time they had opened up the jungle area next to the
palapa, the church.
Yeah, and they were going to put like a lime trees.
Yes,
is that what it was?
Planted. They've been
planted. And so this will be a long term, commitment to where it's going to take a little bit to get
several years,
to get the fruit. But it's something the village can earn. The church will be able to earn that money for that and be able to help others, and then they'll be able to have people from the village working it. So that's a new thing too that I'm excited to see. Yeah, because it wasn't like that before.
They brought lime tree. Are we planting lime trees, or are they bringing in?
We planted them.
Okay.
Yeah. So we as we were down there was a discussion about what would help the village as well as help the church.
Right.
And, there's already,
yeah,
to be self-sustaining. And they already had like grapefruit trees, and they already had some of these other trees that are around and everything. And so they were kind of like, well, what would be different that we don't already have? And limes was one of them. I don't remember what the other fruits were, but there was like 3 different fruit trees that they chose. And we pulled money together and everything. I forgot how many we bought. I think it was like 100 trees or something like that. And so they've already planted the trees at the appropriate time. And so when we go back down there, we'll be tending the ground where these trees are. Now, where this area they cleared out, what you have to think about in this particular area of Mexico is you just have this thin layer of dirt on top of volcanic rock. So it is you can't put a shovel in without hitting a rock.
Not super fun to garden in.
Super fun to garden in. But my first time down there, as we were walking back into the jungle and everything like that, there was areas where they had planted corn in this field in the little bits of dirt spots that they had. Okay. And so obviously it didn't produce a great deal of corn, but they got some corn out of it. And so they were trying to do it. And they were talking about what they would have to do to make that to where it was more agricultural, to where they would be able to grow more corn or whatever. And then this idea of the fruit trees came up. And it takes 3 to 5 years for most fruit trees to be producing. So I'm kind of excited about going down there and maybe adopting a tree or two. And,
so this will have been a whole year?
This will be a full year.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure. You guys are going once a year.
We go December, like 2 days after Christmas. I think it's the 27th. And then we come back
after New Year's.
The 2nd, maybe January 2nd or something like that. But before the very beginning, the church went also in June. Now we just do the once a year. I know just as of weather wise, the summer, June is so hot. Just, just out here walking outside, it's really hot down there. So it's definitely, December's better for medical. If you have some health issues, usually at least you can handle the weather better.
Right.
And to be able to fight the medical. So I know this last time we had several that had some medical needs, but they were, able to work and minister.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Now you're just in the heat. I don't imagine there's a ton of air conditioning around there.
No.
So you
No.
can-
Once you get on the bus to go, which the bus doesn't have air conditioning either.
Right.
You get to the village, you're just out.
So
and
you have it in each meal though.
each
Yes.
meal you have it
In the dorms.
We have like a unit at night, and then they have it for siesta, which is
Okay.
like an hour. You rest after meal, which I
Right.
think we need to have
We
that.
should do that here.
I love the idea. And so, but they turn it off immediately because it takes up so much power.
Yeah.
So it's not something we can have. Like when we're eating our meals, we're eating out just under the
Yeah.
covered thing.
Wow.
But the village, I know one thing I had to get used to is when we go to San Francisco is the bathroom. It's just, they do have, because the government, if you vote for them, then they will put in a bathroom. And so one little building out, detached from your house, and it has one toilet. And so we have to okay, who has the toilet paper? Okay, we need to get the toilet paper. We got to go to the bathroom. But it's someone's house, and it's their bathroom. The church does not have its own bathroom. It's just someone in the village, I think, that might go to the church, right?
Yes.
That they allow us to use it.
Yeah.
But that was something to get used to. Everybody's using that same one, and just,
wow.
it's just a little different.
Yeah.
So,
It's like going camping and,
yeah, but I'm not a
bit.
camper.
Maybe
So-
you are and you didn't know it.
I'm not all about sharing my personal needs with
Yeah.
strangers either.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
and
how
we don't go
effective-
there to be comfortable. We
Well,
go
right.
there
Yes.
to share
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christ, and
Yeah.
and we enter into His suffering just a little bit. Nothing
Right.
like what He did for us. So
Yeah.
it's a small price to pay
You can
to
go
show
down
the
there.
love.
You go down there for 5 or 6 days,
Sure.
and you
Just suck it up and-
suffer,
yeah.
right? But you can see the end
Mhm.
because in a couple of days I'll get back
Yeah.
on that airplane and fly back to my TV and my air
It's a
conditioning.
great reminder of all the stuff you take for granted.
Yeah.
Oh, we're just used to walking into our house and we have all this.
Right.
Do we really like for food? I do have extra stuff that I just hadn't touched in my pantry
Yeah.
that I can pull out and I can eat off of it for a while. But that's not what they have.
Right.
So just getting used to it when you drive by and you see the hammock hanging and everybody sleeps, and then during the day they pull it aside and that's their only space.
Right.
Or the pigs all in the yard, and the kids are playing all through all that and everything.
Chickens
You
running
just
wild.
really,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a great reminder of what God has given you and what we take for granted each day.
Well,
To not take it for granted.
Right. We see these things in movies, right? We've all seen movies in third world countries and people living in thatch huts and chickens in the yard. What is it like for the bus to roll into the village and you're actually seeing this for the first time and it's real life?
I think the thing that struck me, and I took a picture of it, we're all coming from Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one small piece of evidence of an Americanized Christmas, a commercial Christmas. It was one of those 70s tinsel trees, the silver ones.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was probably from the 70s.
Right.
And it was in the middle of their yard. And there was nothing on it. It was just a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And that really got me, because at home I have the turquoise ornaments and
Right.
the turquoise wrapping paper,
Find
and
trees
it
in your
all
house. And,
color
yeah,
coordinated. And then I thought of all the gifts that we'd give, and we were able to give these children gifts,
Yeah.
and it was probably in
They're
most
so
instances
excited.
their
These,
first Christmas gift.
yeah, their first Christmas gift that they get to unwrap.
Yeah.
We wrapped the presents and gave it to
Oh,
them and
that's
everything. So
awesome.
it was unique.
Spent hours wrapping presents,
Yeah.
just to be able to.
Yeah, we got
yeah.
this past year, because we went to that different village. We were able to do gifts for 2 villages.
Okay.
So it's just really neat. They're really excited, and they do listen to you and sit and wait. And then they all open their gifts at one time. I was like, my girls would,
They're
they might not be able to
never-
sit and be that patient,
Yeah.
but you could just see the excitement. They're very thankful for anything they get.
Right.
So yeah, it's been great. like that experience with the kids and stuff.
Well, that's the moment, right, when you know, or like when you're praying with the lady and you discover that her son and grandson were coming. There's a moment on a mission trip, in my experience at least, when you realize that's why we came.
Yeah.
Like, that's why we did it. And it could be anything. I remember a trip to West Virginia and a little girl being so happy that we took a bunch of stuff with us. They just had a bunch of flooding, and she found a bar of soap, and she had her own soap. And this was the first time in her life that she'd had her. And West Virginia is not third world, but there's a lot of places up there that don't miss it by much. But she had her very own soap for the first time. It was the biggest deal ever. And I thought, well, that's why we came. That's why we did that. And then, of course, we get to share the gospel with her and her family. But you meet that need. You give somebody something they never had before. And it might be love, right? Yeah. Love might be the thing they've never had before.
Yes.
But somebody would travel halfway across the world to do this for me. Like, I'll listen to their story.
And every missions team, because we're all volunteering for this, and we all have to, we seek and get that guidance from God that, yes, I feel that this is a calling for me to do. Right. So each mission trip that I've been on has been a little different. So, I've only been on 2, but what is unique is we always seem to have the right people there when we get there. Yeah. So, and, so I'm the Boy Scout, I'm the guy who always carries the extra stuff and everything like that. Well, we didn't know what we were going to do my first year. Right. So I threw in a couple things that I thought, I'd be lucky if we ever need to use this. I threw in a volt-ohm-meter. I threw in just a little small one, nothing fancy. I threw in a couple extra screwdrivers and stuff like that. Well, the next thing I know, while we're working there, the pump goes down at the Ishmael, and they've got a broken switch or something they're trying to figure out. And so I'm bringing over the volt-ohm-meter so they can figure out which lead's got to go where. And then we were able to bypass the switch and get that one running. And what we ended up having to do is grab the pump switch out of San Francisco, out of that pump, bring it over to Ishmael so we could get through the night. And then the next morning we replaced it over there in San Francisco. So I've got all my tools with me, right. And we're over there putting it back together. And we had another guy who was automobile mechanic type inclination, and the starter had gone, or no, it wasn't the starter, it was the alternator had gone out on one of the vehicles, and he sat there and helped him diagnose that it was in fact the alternator, and then he takes the alternator off, shows the director down there how to do this, and then we go into town and they take it to a little side shop and they replace all the components inside the alternator, and they didn't just buy a brand new alternator, right? And then we come back and we put it back on. But God sent the right people, to do the mission that was there.
Awesome.
And we should point out that year we had twice as many planned to go, but because of all the things that were going on with COVID and different things that came up with some of the mission family that was going, half of them stepped back. And that funded our trip completely.
Twice as much money. It
was exactly what we needed.
Oh, wow.
So it worked out exactly like it was supposed to. Plus, there's just sweet redemption with his wife, because his wife, I happen to know, rolled her eyes when he packed those crazy heavy
all those
items.
Extra stuff. Yeah,
I didn't even take makeup, and you're going to take extra tools. Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Makeup wouldn't have fixed the pump on that.
I mean, it's so much you see God's hand in when he calls you to do something. He shows you exactly how to do it, and he gives you just the right things to do it. And initially, I had no intention of going to Mexico. I don't do jungle. I don't do July, and I don't do jungle. And the thing is, it was one of those moments where you're praying, and there's a sermon involved, and it's about giving what he asked of you. And I just had this moment that I turned around and looked at my husband in the middle of a service and with tears in my eyes and said, well, you've got a travel partner. I'm going to Mexico.
Let's go.
And he was just so happy about that. And I'm like, I'm not, but I'm going to go.
That's not what it's about, though. It's not about us being happy and comfortable. And all
it's not the happiness, it's the joy.
Right.
And the joy is something you can never shake.
I was talking about joy. So the first year, I we kind of got together. I said, I want to give the ladies something. We were, we had established, other team had established the ladies' Bible study. And so I said, well, it'll be just something just for the women. It's not necessarily for their kids or something for the whole family. So we did the little makeup, or we did, people would donate, those little samples of little lipstick or little things that, you can give. And then we sorted it out, and everybody got a bag. And I was like, I just want this to be for y'all, because y'all give, a lot of times you sacrifice, just thinking as a parent, as a teacher, doing different things. Those are the things you identify as, and you don't always do for yourself sometimes. Right. And I was like, so I said that to them, and then we gave them. So they were all like, "Oh, well, look at this!" And we had to translate, because this is like, well, what is this for? What is this for? And so we were going through. So it was really fun that they got to, and then they got to share that with the teenagers, the younger girls. And but yeah, they were really excited. And I think it was Ladia was like, just very thankful, because she is like the matriarch of the village, so she really wants to take care of
her name was
Ladia.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was really, that meant a lot to me, being able to share that with them.
Yeah. So how does that structure, where we've mentioned the matron, the matriarch, whatever we're calling her, from the village, what is that structure like?
Well, I think it's just I know that her family, they've been there a long time.
Yes. Yeah. And I think she was probably one of the first converts.
Oh, okay.
I think she was one of our first believers.
So she's kind of led the way for the church, and really been open for change. I know at the beginning, when the church first started, I know they had a lot of resistance in Itchmill or the surrounding area, and spreading out. So, it was tough. So I think she just really has opened up. And like this last time, her husband, that they really think of us coming. That they're like planning for us to come.
They'll be here
and
in 2
so
weeks.
he was like really thinking, well, what stuff I can give them, because when we come, we're sometimes we do a bag of rice. Right. We do try to give them food that they can fix for the family, and but they try to also then turn around and give us stuff. So he came in with his whole wagon full of grapefruit. Oh my goodness, it was so good. Our grapefruit's good, but no, it wasn't. It's not compared.
Very fresh.
And he had peeled all of them, so we just had to break it open.
Yeah.
And but it was a sacrifice for him that he could do this.
Yeah. And he did it so formally too. He called everyone together. And I was sitting there chatting with Ladia, and she put her hand up and made me stop and said go, and told me to go where he was, because she knew he was about to make a small formal speech about how much he wanted to bless us because we had blessed them. Yeah. And this is a man who 10 years ago didn't believe in Jesus. Yeah. And so for him to do that, it's sacrificial, but it's just the love behind it.
Yeah. Well, and how humbling, right? We go there to help these people and do for them and give them stuff, and they want to give you, they don't have anything, and they want to give you something back, and puts things in perspective, right?
Yep.
And like,
Yep. And of course, with those grapefruits, in order to cut those grapefruits, he's got one of these long machete knives. He's in there
he put some work into that.
Yeah.
So that, I liked that moment. That was really touching.
That was one of my favorites. Yeah, and that he and Aladia are probably the elders of the area. Right. And so a lot of the people there are family members or distantly related somehow, and they know everyone in the village. So they're a significant family. So when you see that family entering into the kingdom, then things are taking
it's a major inroad, right? Because this is somebody that everybody in the village is looking up to, and if it's good enough for them, maybe it's good enough for me too.
Right. Absolutely. And to see the joy and to see the difference in their relationships inside their family because of that. Yeah. it's just so rewarding. So rewarding.
Well, you've talked about joy. We've three of us here at least have mentioned joy and the difference between joy and happiness. I think that's something important to keep in mind when you do one of these things, because again, like we said, it's not about us and being happy. You get some of that when you receive these blessings from people that you went to bless, but that's the difference, right, between joy and happiness. And we can be happy on the couch in the air condition, or we can have joy out serving the Lord.
Absolutely.
And not being super comfortable and not, having the best amenities and all these things. But, you look at what Christ did for us, and, he didn't exactly have it great either, especially with what he went through there at the end before he came back. But it's about perspective. That's good stuff. Sound like you guys are hitting the nail on the head. But so you're talking to these people, and you're talking to me like I know these people too. What is the language barrier like when you go?
Well, like I will say, I've gotten more comfortable with the language stuff. I know that my first year, we do have a translator. I know y'all were short one translator one year.
We were short the translator. She was the one who's been there from the beginning, who has learned the Mayan language and learned the English language. In fact, the first year that she was there, she was a new Christian, and her husband, they met here in Rome. And her husband accepted this call because he met someone randomly, just like he met her randomly. Okay. And they got married and moved here. Wow. And he was in the middle of getting his visa.
Okay.
So he literally was set back. He could not come back to America.
Oh, no.
So they paid the ultimate price to go there to the Yucatan jungle.
Wow.
But I say that to say they are there, and she has learned the language by struggling. She paid the price before we got there.
So she's
to
American.
Learn to communicate. They're actually, I think she's from Tequila.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so she's not. Well, that's what I didn't know if you took a translator with you or if there was.
Now this past year we did have someone with us that knew some Spanish.
Right.
And so she was able to kind of help a little bit. And so it did spread it out to where, like, we could grab one person and I want to talk to this lady or this guy.
It was amazing.
And it's much easier trying, with the language barrier, but they're very, they do think you're really funny when you try to talk. They'll laugh at you, with you, because I'm kind of laughing at myself, but I show pictures. I got my phone out the first time, so I was trying to, show my family, like my siblings and stuff like that, because they do tend to have bigger families on average. And so I'm one of 11. So I was like, okay, well, see, here's my brother and sister. I was going through and they're like, but you just have to keep trying.
Yeah. Well, that's something they can relate to. I mean, you show them I'm a person just like you with a family, and these are my siblings and my cousin and whoever. And they go, well, I got siblings and cousins too. We're people together.
Yeah. And when you work with the men, the communications too, you're working in a labor spot. Well, if you think about a lot of your jobs that you do, and especially in the hard labor jobs, if somebody shows you what to do, then you can do it.
Right.
So the language doesn't get to be as much of a problem. Once somebody shows you how to do something, then you just go in and do it.
Right.
And then, there's a lot of hand signaling and everything after that. Yeah. But yeah, we work around the language issues. Everybody knows that we're there for the right reason.
Right.
If it was our first year there, it would be harder.
I'm sure.
But being, now having been there as long as we have, there's a lot of grace given with, the language barriers. They know that we're there to help.
The kids do know a lot more English because they are learning it through school.
Yeah.
They're being taught, but still, there is still a language barrier there too. But it's a little easier with the kids, I would say.
Yeah.
But I know that new village we went to this past time, some of the kids were speaking Mayan, where in San Francisco it's more the older group population that speaks Mayan. Yeah. So we were like, then our translators were trying to translate from this kid Mayan and so that was a little That was a little different.
Those languages are like way
Totally
different.
I actually asked the young lady the first year, because the lady that had been there for all these years, who is married to Eli, who is over the mission house, was having a baby. So she inconvenienced us and hung us out to dry, going to have a baby.
Right.
And so
Poor timing.
someone who worked for the ministry that spoke English and Spanish was trying to translate Mayan to Spanish.
I can't.
And so she was struggling, and I said, how difficult is it? And you get there and you learn immediately with someone trying to translate. Suddenly I know I will only say one word at a time.
It slows
Yeah.
things
You have
down.
to, you really do, because otherwise they just look at you blankly.
Right.
But I asked her, how hard is it to move from the Mayan language to the Spanish language and then translate it to English? And she looked at me blankly for a second and said, mucho. Mucho hard. Yes.
As hard as it is for us to
She
go
was
from
really
English to
struggling.
Spanish.
Yeah.
But when we had the true interpreter this past year, and we had formed all these relationships, and we did some things a little differently because she had watched so many things evolve over the years.
Right.
And so, like, the week that we were going, she sent a text and said, hey, could you guys maybe do a Bible study out of Ruth or Esther or something?
All right.
Well, okay then. And we thought about it and had a couple of quick meetings and determined, okay, let's do Ruth because it's 4 chapters.
Right.
And so each day, one lady took that chapter and she did 2 things. First, she told a little about herself, and we took a theme out of the chapter, like the theme of bitterness, of Naomi's bitterness. And so the lady that had already confessed the year before, I struggled with bitterness in my marriage for many years until I gave my life over to Christ. So she talked about that bitterness again, and then we went through the nutshell, the cliff notes of that
Right.
chapter. And so each of the 4 days we did that. And then the last day, a different person stepped up and presented the gospel. It happened to be me. And it was the best moment to me was none of those moments. It was the moment that I asked, can you tell me what you like about what's going on this year? And one woman said what we're doing right now. And it wasn't just about the Bible study. It was because Selene had said, okay, there's enough interpreters here this year, even though you'll struggle. I'm going to put you sitting this way. So she made one Mayan lady, and then she put an American, and then she put another Mayan lady. And so there were multiple conversations going on at one time.
Yeah, she was trying to pair, because they really reached out to some other ladies
Yes.
that, to disciple. They were trying to bring them in.
Right.
And so they invited them into this group. And so they did. They paired maybe one from that's been coming to church with maybe one of the others, and and then with the language, and then one of us. So it's bringing all, like, basically 3 all together. It was really good. Yeah, and they usually teach us, like, maybe something that they do. Like the hammocks was one in previous year. This time it was kind of like cross stitching, if you think of it here. But I can't remember what they called it, something different, but it's like cross stitch. Right. I never got it. But they tried multiple times, and I'm like, I just struggle with this. And I kept going, can you show me again? And, and then she'd hand it back, and I'd be like, oh, I've already messed it up.
Yeah.
This was what they did for a living.
Right.
So they were really, really skilled craftsmen, and they were very proud to be able to show us that. And so just the moments that we had individually as opposed to someone speaking at them, there was so much engagement.
Right.
And for them to recognize that was what had value.
Yeah.
It was a teary moment for me because I agreed that we were all engaging together. And I had extended conversation with Eladia. And the coolest thing was Eli's niece was there.
Yeah, that was the first time meeting her.
And she literally was breaking into a sweat because she did not speak those two languages
wow.
interchangeably.
Yeah.
And she did so well, and afterwards she was like, "Oh, that was so hard." So he was challenging her at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's so many little pieces of the tapestry that are being woven together at one time. And you just see the Lord working in each individual in a different way, at a different level, and using everyone's story to do that.
Yeah.
I know. So we've talked a lot about the men and the women. Now in the past, I've done a lot with the kids. So something that I always think is really cool this past time. So I would have my Bible and I would read through the scripture, or I'd tell a story out of it. And then the translator, which was the one she was just talking about, that was saying that it was really hard. She had her Bible, and she just basically read the scripture in Spanish right behind me. And I know that sounds really simple, but it's really cool that it's the same story, it's the same points, same gospel, but you're getting it from two different languages.
Yeah.
And the kids are all sitting and they're listening, and I answer comprehension questions, so, to make sure, they're getting it, and they're answering, and they're excited who can answer first. And so I thought it's just really cool. It's just a reminder that we're all together. We're all in it together.
There's not a language barrier for God, right?
Yeah.
I remember we were in church one time when I went to Cassville Baptist, and a guy named Craig McClure came to preach. And he is from Towns County, Georgia, as lily white as he can be, right? And then he was called to missions in the Dominican Republic. He was a Spanish teacher, so he kind of knew Spanish, and then he went down there and was doing like a short-term thing. Well, Craig's been there for like 11 years now, and they speak Spanish in their lily white American home. Their kids speak English with a Spanish accent when they come here and you talk to them. Their kids have a Spanish accent. So he's preaching in church one time. It's around Christmas, and they were in town, and we got him to come preach. And he opens up the service with a prayer in Spanish. And it wasn't a second thought for him. He just spoke Spanish naturally at that point. And it wasn't like he went out of his way to speak Spanish. It's just what came out when he opened his mouth. But in that moment, I realized that I had no idea what he was saying, right? No idea at all. But he's still talking to God the same way that I do in, our English language that we love and cherish so much. But he can hear Spanish, and he hears Italian, and he hears German, and he doesn't need a translator, like we do, to say, well, what did he just say? God gets it. So to go to these people in these cultures and take the gospel to them, the gospel translates, right? And we're proof of that because the Bible wasn't written in English. But it's just cool. To me, it's about the power of God and getting through barriers that.
And you can see God working.
Yeah.
You can see it on their faces.
Yeah.
And you can feel the Holy Spirit working,
Yeah.
And you don't always know all the steps you need to take, but you know He's there and He's working. Right. Even with a music, when they're doing a praise song. It was one time, like, toward the end of the week, we'll do a village block party type thing, where we'll do hamburgers and then we do that's when we did the presents and we did the piñata. So all the kids love the piñata. And then they have the worship. They had a worship group that came this time that's from a local, I think they traveled a little bit, but it's basically local. And so they're just singing, praise songs, but it's really cool. You're still worshiping, the same.
That's so cool.
And we give them these 100-pound bags of corn and stuff like that. And it's a struggle for me to get one of those up on my shoulder. She got one up on her shoulder.
I was determined to try it. Now, I did struggle with the step, going up on the step, but I was determined to do it.
Yeah.
That's a keeper.
Yeah.
I just watched.
Yeah.
It's 100 pounds.
Yeah. And so we distribute that out and, watch some of these young kids come grab them. They'll get two of these 100-pound bags and they'll put it on the back rack of a bicycle.
Holy
and
smokes.
then push it along. And it's
bless their hearts. I mean, if you get hungry enough, you'll tote a 100-pound bag, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys have to pay for all this. Money's got to come from somewhere. Where does our funding come from?
The majority, the last 2 years have come from cake auctions that we've done as a church, where everyone presents their best baking foot and lays out cakes.
It's a cause I can get behind.
It's, and people really do
nice
get excited. I've never seen anything like it, but you're talking about Baptist and cake.
Right.
And so that's a great fundraiser. Last year we did chocolate bars, the world's greatest.
I know. One year we did the grilled meatloaf.
I bought one of those. It was fantastic.
So, and then let's see, we also send out like just individual, families. We send out letters and just letting them know what we're doing and for donations. I know that's mainly just from people just say, oh, this is what God, I feel, I can't go, but I can help you go.
Yeah. And anybody that wants to give something, they can just simply send a check to HBC Rome, to the church there, and just label on it for missions.
Okay.
And they'll put it into the missions fund. It'll go into everybody's account.
We split it up.
Split it up.
Tango, remind me to put a link to that on the post.
Yeah. HBC Rome and the missions. And then there's, I don't know their text to give number, but there's another way of doing it there.
Okay.
We'll get you that number too, so you can add that as well. But and then the other thing we do too, and this doesn't raise us money, but it helps the village.
Sure. We
kind of talked on it a little bit that the village, the only source of income a lot of these people have are like the men. They'll leave the village and go get jobs somewhere and do hard labor and then come back, and sometimes they're gone the entire week. Wow. But the women, they will do their cross stitch. They'll do these hammocks. And so one of the things we always like to do when we go down there, and we're always looking for people interested, is we will go down and buy a certain number of hammocks from them each year.
And these are really nice. They're really big.
Right.
And they hold everybody. You can really fit. Yeah. So they're really nice. And I think we pay how much?
It's $45 to $50.
Yeah, $45-$50.
Yeah.
Which roughly, and we'll go down and we'll take donations from people in advance to say, we'll bring you back a hammock, so because we always want to make sure we bring enough to the village, because that one hammock is a month's salary for some of these people.
$45 is a big deal.
It's a big deal down there.
And the ladies are very they want you. They're like putting all into making this hammock because they know, okay, y'all are coming. Okay, well, you need this many. Because we told them ahead of time, so we got people wanting this many hammocks. Yeah. So they went ahead and told the village so they could have it prepared. Yeah. And they're really colorful, lots of different colors. You can request certain colors. I think a couple of people did that this past time. So they're really nice. Yeah.
So it's important because it is helping the village.
Right.
And it extends our goodwill with them as well. Yeah. And I can only use so many hammocks at my house. So we would really appreciate if you want a hammock.
Chickens they don't really care about hammocks.
Yeah.
Chickens just want a coop.
They do chicken stuff.
We don't buy hammocks for the chickens, but we do buy them for ourselves.
There you go.
And it is the same hammock that they'll sleep in at their house. Yeah. And it's funny because this came up too. Is it does get cold in the Yucatan? Yeah, that's where we didn't say which region of Mexico. It's in the Yucatan Peninsula.
Right.
So it does get cold down there. And what they will do is they'll actually put a small fire underneath the hammock.
Wow.
And they've had people catch on fire doing that and stuff like that. But that's because that's what they have. And they don't have room for traditional furniture. Mm-hmm. So they just simply fold the hammock up, and then they've got their one-room house that they're in. So
hangs from the roof a lot of times, so they just hang it up out of the way.
Imagine
move around their dirt floor.
You guys have seen these things, and you've been there, and I'm getting these pictures in my head of my hammock that takes up my house, and I have to put it away so I can have space to do whatever I'm doing. My house is 1,300 square feet, which is not a big house, but it's plenty of, we can throw a ball across my living room, and there's, I don't have to move the hammock for it. But that's the kind of the conditions that we're talking about.
Right.
And things that we take for
Yeah,
granted.
it blows you away with that part when you
Yeah.
just look in and you're just seeing the hammocks and that's it. And it's like a square box, just a little small thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you had mentioned earlier about the bathroom and the politicians and everything like that. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
The politicians, if you're going to vote for them, they will arrange for concrete block and sand and all the stuff, Portland cement, whatever you need to make concrete, and so you can build your houses with it. And then they come in and they'll paint them and they'll put their political logo on the side.
gotta put the logo on the side.
And so that's, that house has been bought and paid for by this political party.
So if you don't vote for them the next time, do they come back and take your stuff away? Or?
Well, I don't know.
But it can cause tension.
Oh, I'm
Because
sure.
say if you have a village and then you have just a couple people that decide not to, the political powers that be will say, well, your whole village is not supporting, and they will withdraw and not give that village the support. So then that group is kind of really looked down on by the rest of the village. Yeah, I think the latest campaign they did was for some cell phones. And that was just recently they had access to cell phones, which is, yes, it kind of helped them, but it's also a curse.
Right, yeah. Well, when the government's holding it over your head,
Yes.
either all of you get one of these or nobody does.
So it has caused some tension. So it's a newer need in the village. So.
We think about government corruption here, but that's a whole different level of scumbaggery.
Yeah.
We don't have to, I don't know, we can still buy things that we need here. It's not like we need the government to come around and build a bathroom for us. And, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Bless their hearts. So you guys are going in December.
Yes, December 27th is when we will be leaving out.
And you stay for 5 or 6 days and
Come back the 2nd or 3rd of January.
We usually
We go over
do
this one
like
time
you have a
before?
travel day at the beginning and end, and then we have 3 to 4 days of working in the village and doing vacation Bible school with the kids, the Bible studies with the ladies and the men.
Yeah.
So
I gotcha.
And you don't have to be a member of HBC to go on the mission
Oh,
trip
okay.
either.
Yeah,
So
we were
that's
gonna get
another
to
thing.
that.
So I just, anybody that has the desire to go on this, I think they get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
And
So who is the point person that we should talk to about going on this mission trip?
Greg Pauley.
Greg
Yes.
Pauley.
Yeah.
And we can
Greg
contact
Pauley.
him through HBC.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Or and Tracy will.
Bailey is the
Bailey.
secretary at the
Okay.
church.
Yeah.
So you can always call the church and say, hey, I'm interested. I heard the information about it. What will it take to go? That type of stuff. And he can,
And now would be the time.
yes.
Yeah.
They start
We're in
August.
July, or I guess August is tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Greg made a plan a few years back that works really well, and that is that everyone starts coming together instead of going to their Sunday school classes beginning
Right.
in August. And so we come together and study our Bible and
Share
get to know each
testimony
other.
with each other.
And it helps because we are already a cohesive team
Yeah, that's a great
before
idea.
we ever hit the road. And there's the level of intimacy after you get there, just it grows exponentially because these are people that you've already prayed with, you've already gotten to know,
Right.
you know their gifts and their challenges in life.
Yeah.
And then you go somewhere where you really get to know each other on a lot more intimate level.
Right.
And it's part of the experience is the worshiping together and the sharing Christ with others together. You
Right.
know, we're doing battle.
We are. Now, you guys we're talking about going to Mexico and doing all the stuff we've been talking about for how long now, Hayden? An hour? Where are we at? Okay. See, I got a clock right here. But you guys do some work locally. And I don't want to go forever and ever, but we mentioned this off air, so I want to bring some of that into this program too.
Yeah.
You guys do Sleep in Heavenly Peace. What's it called?
Correct. Sleep in Heavenly Peace.
Okay, I got it right.
Yep, you got it right. Just like the song. So Sleep in Heavenly Peace is a ministry where we build beds and deliver them to kids ages 3 to 17. And this is a complete bed.
Right.
So we, as a community, come together and we use construction grade lumber and we build the beds as a community. So that's one service project that people can get involved with. And then we break up into teams and we go deliver the beds. So like this Saturday coming up, which is going to be the 5th, we're delivering 27 beds to families in Cartersville, Rome, and I forgot all the other cities. But we deliver to an area basically that runs from Calhoun to Ackworth, over to Cedartown, and back up to Rome.
Okay.
So it's just a very large area.
So you
that
guys
we
cover Northwest Georgia. I mean,
yeah, a good
big
portion
chunk.
of it. We don't get up to Dade County and all that,
Right.
Lafayette and stuff. But yes, so that's what we do. And so we're always looking for volunteers to get involved with that. We're always looking for donations, of course.
Right.
We'll do bedding drives and where, sometimes the church will come together or a school. We've built at a Daresville High School in Ackworth. And what the kids do there is their school will give them community service hours for donating bedding on the top of the number of hours they donate for the actual bed build.
Right.
And so we built like 52 beds there, and they had like 80 kids came out to help us build. And we turn around and deliver those out to the community. Right now I have, it's probably about 130 bed requests.
Oh, wow.
And we don't have everything we need to fill those needs. So I was just going over that today. It's like, okay, well, we're going to deliver what we got and what we can do, but we're going to hit a stopping point. So,
Yeah.
But our next bed build is scheduled for September 9th.
Okay.
And that's going to be at the Lowe's on Shorter Avenue in Rome here. And so we'll be doing it there, and our goal will be to build at least 50 beds there. That's part of what a nationwide program. So Sleep in Heavenly Peace is a national organization. I know we won't get too long in this,
Right.
but it's a national organization with over 350 chapters. And on one day every year, they call it Bunks Across America. They try to build as many bunks as they can or many beds as they
Right.
can in that day. And so we're building these twin-size beds, and they can be assembled into bunk beds or they can be single beds or whatever.
that's cool.
But the goal is to try to do as many as we can nationwide and do that all in one day. So September 9th, 9 a.m. is when we start. Pre-registration opens up at 8:30, but you can register in advance.
And you don't have to have any
No skills.
skills. So I've done it twice.
There you go.
So the
Yes.
whole family, we went twice. And the first time I sanded, so I could not move my arm afterwards. You don't realize that's going to happen until you leave,
Until you do
and then
this
you're
a
trying to
million
grip
times.
the steering wheel as you drive off.
So funny.
Yeah, and then last time I totally learned something new. So I was drilling, and I'm not used to using a drill and doing the holes. So it was the step before the sanding.
Yeah.
So I did that. So I was like, it took me a little while to get
the cool thing is, Candi didn't come by herself.
Yeah.
She
She
came
brought
with her
kids.
entire family.
Yeah. So we're all
Those highs,
spread
man.
different places.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily have my kids right there with me.
Right.
They're doing something way over there. And Greg did the branding. So they put the letters.
Logo.
The
SHP.
logo on
SHP
it,
logo.
and so he did that the first time. So he really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's literally a fire brand, a metal brand
Yeah.
that we put in a
that's
fire
cool.
pit. And you put it down on that wood, and it just burns, and you get the nice.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
everybody likes doing
So
it.
even pyromaniacs can volunteer.
There you go. There's something for everybody.
If they
Yeah.
are so
For-
inclined.
From 6 to 92.
Yeah.
There
We've
you
had
go.
people of all ages.
I have to
Good
say
deal.
the coolest thing was we started this adventure a little over a year ago, just from the hearing about it. And
Right.
it was another one of those things where God set things in motion for him to learn
As
about
he
this.
does. Yeah.
And it was something that seemed as a negative, but then it was turned into a positive, and it's just been nothing but positive experiences ever since. But we told our team of Mexico folks about what we were doing.
Oh, yeah.
And our very first build was November the 9th last year in the Lowe's parking lot. And I just kept having these moments where I was crying the sand off of my face because so much of that team showed up that day
Oh, wow.
to support us.
Yeah.
And it was a huge moment. And we hoped and prayed we might get about 50 volunteers. Oh, we had about 74, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
We hoped we would maybe get 20 or 30 beds
Yeah.
completed, and we did probably 52.
Yep.
And it's been amazing ever since.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So we've covered all of our bases. I guess we've got international missions, and we've got local missions, and
Yeah.
man, you guys are. What is it? Haven?
Haven
Is that a different episode? Or
It should be.
yeah.
I just think when you are doing what God tells you to do, and it's kind of like it's this one study that I have done in the past, but is where you're looking for where God is working, and you're just being willing to do whatever. So that could be like if there's a food ministry. You spend your time, take your time just doing that. If it's something like one year, I was trying to come up with something for the girls and I to do over the summer, because I like to do stuff with them and take them places,
right.
And so I wanted some service something to do. This was before we went to Mexico. And it was I think it's Bagley food. It's where they give out the backpack buddies. I just can't remember exactly the location. But so we did that one summer. It's just wherever you see they may need help.
Right.
So like you volunteering at Haven Health. She does that during the week. Just wherever. I know one of my ministries is at work. I know that some people may not.
No, for sure.
They think of like a event or something.
You're a special ed teacher.
Yeah. So and I do severe and profound classrooms.
Oh wow.
So
that's above and
they
beyond.
very much they want your attention. They need it. They're dependent on you to take care of them.
Right.
So just letting them, having fun with them, letting them getting them places that they don't normally get to go to, or taking care of their basic needs to be able to set up food in front of them so they can reach it.
Right.
But that, to me, God definitely put me there. That's a long story and how I got there. But it's like everything, it's
Keeping
always
track of all these episodes we're building here.
But definitely God had put me there. So that's definitely one of my
think
things.
what you're saying is you don't have to look very far to find some ministry to be done.
You just got to be looking.
Every day.
Yeah.
Well,
Every day is a ministry opportunity.
For sure.
And if you wake up and say, God, I love you, and because you love me, I want to do something for you. So why don't you show me what my divine assignment is today? And don't let me miss it. Just don't let me miss it. Open my ears to hear what you're asking me to do. And he'll give you what you ask for. Yeah. And then he'll give you the ability and the boldness. Yeah. And that's something we talk about in the Timothy Initiative, is to pray, Bob, to break our hearts for the broken and the lost, and to give us the opportunity to share and to present the gospel.
Wow.
And then give us the boldness to follow through. And that's what we're looking for. And what I wish everyone could know is how satisfying that is. And it's not about becoming even a better person or having something you can check off your box, or that they can even talk about at your funeral. Right. It's about the love. And when you truly, truly grasp the love of Christ, it changes everything.
For sure.
And you want to see everyone experience that. What would this world be like if we all went around sharing Jesus, and then remembering, we can't behave that way because we just shared Jesus with that person.
Right.
Or, wait, didn't I want to be a witness in front of this person I'm working with so that they'll see I have something they might want? And so it just, you're just looking for those assignments and then trying to be true to them. And you win every time.
There you go.
And the person you're serving does too. So.
Absolutely.
I'm going to steal the line for the movie. When God tells you to do something, you move.
That's it.
That's
it. That is the moral of the story here, I think.
Yeah.
But we're going to jump off right there. Thank you guys so much. It was great meeting y'all. It was super great seeing you again. Yeah. Let's do this again sometime. Maybe we'll bring you guys back after the trip, and you can give us a recap how things went. And
Absolutely.
we'd certainly love to have you guys back to go more in depth into Sleep in Heavenly Peace and what you do at Haven Health, and we'll get into all of it. It'll be great.
Excellent.
And we'll know you're coming next time. It'll be fantastic.
Might even bring coffee or cookies or something.
Maybe so. All right.
Maybe next time you'll do a background check.
We'll check it out. God bless you guys. We love you. See you next time. Thank you for watching Burnham Podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.